Magic happens when we engage with our inner worlds in a particular way. All those horrible human tangles of anxiety, doubt, resentment and other pain can start to unravel when we learn to either think through or talk through or journal about our experiences in a certain way. The problem is that we don't use this trick naturally, and some people worsen their issues after exploring their darker experiences because they find reliving their pain, well, painful. If we engage the wrong way, in other words, emotional exploration can harm rather than heal. My name's Hazel Gale. I'm a former therapist turned author and creator of the Betwixt app, and I've made this short series of videos to help you avoid that particular trap. Okay, so the skill I'm talking about can be used in lots of different ways. We can apply it to our self-talk, visualizations, conversations with people, and in various other creative ways too. But I think it's best learned in writing. So that's what I'm going to talk about here. And before I explain the all-important trick, let me give you an outline of how to write for personal change. Expressive writing, sometimes called emotional writing, is a form of writing used as a therapeutic tool. While some may go on to share their musings, usually after a lot of editing, in its essence, expressive writing is not about publication. Rather, it's a personal tool for developing self-awareness, self-compassion, and self-command. Because something really quite magical can happen when pen meets paper, curiously, in the spirit of inquiry. In their book, Romancing the Shadow, Connie Zweig and Stephen Wolfe share some beautiful pieces of writing done by their psychotherapy clients as part of their treatment. There are a number of reasons to do this, but the big one is that by putting our emotions into writing, that is, into language, we force our brain to process those feelings and the experiences that evoke them in a new and different way. Essentially, because the language centers of the brain are in the cortex, that's the more recently developed outer part of the brain, as opposed to the areas that deal with raw emotion, which are in the limbic system or reptilian brain, writing can coax us out of our knee-jerk emotional reactions and help us to take a more evolved perspective. Before I go on, an important note. Please don't attempt to use any of the techniques I'm sharing here on trauma memories unless you have been advised to do so by your therapist or doctor. Okay, with that said, let me break down the practice of expressive writing with some simple do's and don'ts so you can give this a try should you wish. First of all, what we're talking about here is communication at its freest. This practice pays no regard to writing conventions like spelling, grammar, punctuation, or style. The only rule is that the words you use be real, curious, emotional, and of course expressive. So it's important to write as if no one will ever read what you put down. You can decide to burn your writing afterwards if that's what you need to do in order to write honestly. While writing, most people focus on specific events: heartbreak, conflict, failure, childhood memories. But what they write is less about these events than it is their response to them. The point is not to pinpoint why an experience was so upsetting, but to observe the ways in which you did your upset. What specifically did you think? Which emotions did you feel? What did you say or do while in the grip of those emotions? The most effective expressive writing tends to create connections. It links events from the past and present with future projections. It explores the thoughts, feelings, and behaviours that repeat over the course of our lives. This big picture approach helps us to develop a wider web of self-understanding and a deeper awareness of the meaning that we can take from our struggles. So don't be afraid of the odd tangent. In fact, the more of these, the better. Importantly, expressive writing is not about finding the answers. It's not about being able to say, I do X because Y happened to me as a child, because that can actually be quite limiting. Instead, this is more about observing the associations made by your mind as they appear on the page, or the screen, by the way. You don't have to handwrite this. When we write in this way, we simply follow the stream of consciousness as it downloads, and we do so with the intention of expanding self-awareness, rather than pigeonholing our experience. Curiosity is key. Some people, of course, make this kind of writing into a long-term practice, but you absolutely don't need to start with such a big, daunting goal. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of studies out there on the therapeutic benefits of expressive writing, some of which are listed in the show notes. And many of these show big, lasting effects after just 4 20-minute daily sessions of writing. I suggest you start there. One of the biggest benefits of this kind of reflection is that it helps you to know your patterns. If you choose to do some writing, keep an eye out for anything, certain thoughts, feelings, behaviours, or combinations of those things that repeat themselves. Those with awareness of their patterns can learn to catch themselves mid-panic, mid-outburst, or while in the grip of a destructive habit. More importantly, they learn how to take a step back at those times, The awareness developed by the practice of writing opens up valuable windows of opportunity within which we can take different action. It's as if a light bulb flickers on and we find ourselves thinking, wait, this is how I always see things when under pressure, or this is how I always behave in these situations. And that means there are other options up for grabs. Now that knowledge can really help to put you back in the driving seat. Similarly, ready awareness of the scripts used by our inner critics and other scared, doubtful, or otherwise negative parts of the personality is invaluable. These, of course, are also a kind of pattern. And it's only when we can know that a fear or doubt is a pattern that we can recognize that it isn't necessarily an accurate reflection of the present moment reality. Without this awareness, whether we find ourselves questioning our worth, ability, likability, or anything else, our limiting stories feel like the truth each and every time they crop up. We need to know our monsters in order to know that they're made of fiction. But not just any old writing will grant us these benefits. So the vital tool that makes the difference between writing that harms and writing that can heal is this: self-distancing. The ability to take a step back and create some space between yourself and your experience and related emotions. There is a subtle but potent magic to this skill, which is, according to the studies, one of the most effective tools for emotion regulation because it can help you to create a sense of freedom and control even when you're exploring your most disempowering experiences. What it comes down to is this: if you write as if you're locked into your story, as if you're reliving the more painful experiences of your life right from their center, then you may write yourself into a place of increased rumination, anxiety, depression, and the rest. Write from a place where you can see the bigger picture, however, and you may improve your emotional and physical health, as well as making it possible to take control of negative behaviors and habits. I'm going to go into self-distancing, both the how and why it works, in a little more detail in the next video. But until then, here's a simple thought experiment to get you started. Step 1. Think of something challenging that's happened in your life lately. Nothing big. I'm talking a minor argument, a tiny disappointment, or a slightly scary presentation at work. Step 2. Spend 1 or 2 minutes writing an account of that experience as if you're reliving it. See what you saw with your own eyes, hear what you heard all over again, feel what you felt, and think what you thought, and get it all down on paper. Please hit pause if you're doing this in real time. Now, take a big step back and observe that experience as if you are a fly on the wall. Observe yourself reacting to the situation, and write about who you see and how that person is responding to their challenge. Again, only for a minute or two. Hit pause if you need. When you've done that, compare the two passages. How are they different? Do they feel different? Do they pick up on different details? Please, if you feel comfortable, let me know in the comments. And as always, I really hope you find this helpful. If you do, please like and share the video so others can find it. And stay tuned for the next installment where we're going to go into self-distancing in a little more detail. Finally, if you'd like to take an epic journey through a magical world in pursuit of emotional wellness, then you can download Betwixt the Mental Health Game. Available on the iOS App Store and Google Play.